I've been litigating and mediating for about 40 years now, and all in the commercial litigation area. And I've learned that in almost every case, mediation is a better alternative to litigation. And when I think about it, I think there are probably three main advantages to mediation: control, confidentiality and certainty. So if I take those one at a time, in mediation the parties control the outcome and the process. In litigation, the process is controlled by the judge, the outcome is controlled by the judge, but in mediation it's for the parties to organise their mediation and, more importantly, to agree, if they can, on the outcome. The mediator isn't going to impose an outcome on them. The mediator is going to try to bring the parties to a position where they can agree on terms of settlement, but there'll only be an outcome if the parties are satisfied with it. They control it. And I think that's particularly important in the international context, because usually one or both of the parties are going to be litigating in a jurisdiction they're not familiar with. Nobody likes to be in court. It's a very stressful situation for non-lawyers. It can be quite stressful for lawyers too, but businessmen don't want to spend their time in court, but they particularly don't want to spend their time in court in a jurisdiction that they're not familiar with, where they may have their case decided by a judge who isn't familiar with business practices in their home country, and that just increases the stress and the uncertainty. So that's the first thing, the control factor. Then there's the certainty. The parties, if they can reach an agreement, have an outcome. They have a certain result. Rather than spending the next year or two waiting for a trial to come on and not knowing what the outcome is going to be at the end of all that time, they can produce a certain result on the day of the mediation. They can go back to their office, they can get on with business and put the dispute behind them, knowing that they have sorted it out, that they have an agreement, and knowing that they've avoided that situation where a judge in a couple of years' time is going to tell them what their outcome is. I always tell the parties that I think the best result of a mediation is if they go away equally unhappy with the result, because they've had to give away something that they think they're entitled to. But the test of whether it's a good outcome is not what they feel when they walk out of the mediation, it's how they feel the next morning when they get up and they know that they've sorted it out and they can get on with business. Because very often I think the legal documents don't convey accurately the true position of the parties. And when you hear the individuals explain their position, that often sheds a whole new light on the dispute. And I think that's important not just for the mediator, but for the parties. There's huge value in having the parties sit across a table from each other and listen to each other explain their position. Because I think when we litigate, we tend to demonise the other side. They're the enemy, and we know they're wrong, and we know that our position's right. But once you hear the other side explain why they did this or why they think their position is valid, then you won't always necessarily agree with everything they say, but if you listen, you'll think, well, yeah, I may not agree with all of that, but I can see where that person's coming from. I can see that person's point of view. The other thing I expect to do during a mediation is to critically assess what people are saying and talk to each of the parties separately, confidentially in private session, and tell them, sometimes fairly bluntly, what I think is wrong with their case. Because they need to do some real reality testing about what's likely to happen if they go to trial. It's easy to focus on your strong points, but if you've got somebody independent saying to you, well, look, I hear what you say, but have you thought about this? Can you see that somebody else might interpret those facts and those events a little differently? And the judge's analysis might be quite different from yours. So a mediator, I think, if he doesn't earn his fee just by going backwards and forwards conveying offers, you have to contribute something in the form of an assessment and a meaningful discussion with the parties.